tunnels. They are also closed down. Let's go to 1010 Wins reporter Eileen LaPalmer. She is at City Hall. Eileen?
Well, Lee, I'm here live outside of City Hall. The entire, as you can imagine, it is absolute chaos here. The entire city has come to a standstill. Everyone just standing, looking at the smoke pouring out of the World Trade Center at this moment. There are certain people trying to call their families. All the cell phones are down, as you can imagine, since there are these tribes at the World Trade Center is the antennas where people would be calling on the cell phones. Therefore, people are lining up around the block just to use a payphone at this point. Everyone's still trying to figure out what's going on. I ran into this woman named Susan. She was supposed to be in the World Trade Center today at this very moment. Again, at this point, everything is shut down. The Woolworth building has been evacuated. City Hall is shut down and also has been evacuated. We will bring you more as soon as we have it. Eileen LaPalmer, 1010 Wins, live outside of City Hall.
Okay, and now we have word from Washington that the Capitol and the Treasury are being evacuated. This in addition to the White House and to the Pentagon. The Pentagon apparently having been hit by a plane this morning, not unlike the World Trade Center Twin Towers, both of which appear to have been on the news of what had transpired here in New York City this morning. If you are a New York City firefighter, you are ordered to report to your station immediately. We need the help this morning with a major disaster unfolding in New York City, and the world has changed markedly in little less than an hour. When we first got word that a plane had crashed into the World Trade Center, we then saw a second plane crash into the second tower of the World Trade Center. We later got word of a plane apparently crashing into the Pentagon, word that the White House had been evacuated, now the Capitol and the Treasury also having been evacuated. What we have not heard yet are casualty figures for what is obviously a massive disaster at the World Trade Center, and there is no doubt massive loss of life there. We've been talking to various reporters, people who've been trying to get to the scene, people who have been watching it unfold from all parts of the city, because the World Trade Center obviously is visible for many, many miles, and it's hard to miss when there is smoke and a massive explosion coming out of it. The first we heard was from 1010 Wins account executive Joan Fleischer. She was the first to call this in. Joan, you're still there?
I'm here.
Okay, you've been watching this on a rooftop with friends and neighbors, and how would you gauge their reaction at this point?
Everyone is in shock. People can't believe what they heard or they saw. They've been running downstairs to keep an eye on TV, but I haven't left this area since I called you at first. And it's unbelievable. I mean, they're still bringing in all the police and the fire trucks. They're ongoing. The smoke is unbelievable. It doesn't even look like they've been able to do anything other than respond to, I guess, emergencies on ground, because there's nothing happening within the building that I can see from here on top. They have police helicopters overhead, I think, to keep everybody else away. And the smoke is building, still heading towards Brooklyn. You can smell the smoke from here. It's coming from the entire area of both buildings. It's unbelievable.
Well, this really is a case of a situation that you thought couldn't get any worse, getting progressively worse.
Yes.
First one plane crashing into the World Trade Center, then a second crashing into the second tower of the World Trade Center.
Unbelievable.
Word now that a plane has crashed into the Pentagon. It has been evacuated along with the west wing of the White House. The Treasury has been evacuated. The Capitol evacuated. The Sears Tower in Chicago has been evacuated. There was no threat of an attack against the Sears Tower, but they're obviously going to quit while they're ahead there. And all of this, the world...
Oh, wait. Oh, my God. Oh, my God, the building fell. Are you there? The building just fell.
Which?
Oh, my God, the South building just crumbled from the top. Oh, my God, the building just fell. The entire World Trade Center on the South building just fell. I just saw the whole thing. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. I can't see anything else. The whole thing went down. Oh, my God. Oh, I saw the building crumble. It's all the way down. I can't see at what point it's still standing.
What Joan is saying is true. The tower has collapsed.
Oh my God! The building is crumbled.
This is 1010 Winds, WINS New York. One of the
Completely down.
two towers, the south tower of the World Trade Center, has just crumbled, collapsed in a pile of dust. This approximately less than an hour after it was hit by an aircraft.
The second building completely down. Where are you? You heard the I was up here. Me too.
A situation that started bad just gets worse and worse and worse. The World Trade Center, South Tower, which was hit by a plane and cracked by an explosion.
Collapsed. Gone.
Approximately an hour
The whole city's like now, the whole downtown's probably
collapsed.
got it all on the video, but it's gone. You can see what happened.
But the
It's going to be
World
horrifying
Trade
because
Center,
it's all
South
on, it's all
Tower,
the other buildings.
has collapsed. Let's go live to CNN for a moment.
A big black billowing cloud of smoke that is rising over the Pentagon. You heard Jamie McIntyre a moment ago describe where that was coming from. I can also tell you that local radio, in addition to talking about evacuations, as we've heard at the Pentagon and the White House, is reporting that the Capitol building has been evacuated and the Treasury Department has been evacuated. Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, is exceptionally tense and clearly taking steps as if it is virtually under siege here. We don't know specifically, as you said, what has taken place at the Pentagon, but this is very serious, striking at the heart of the national government. And as John King was explaining, the White House
Frank, it's Aaron. I need to interrupt you for a second. Again, there has been a second explosion here in Manhattan at the Trade Center. We are getting reports that a part of the tower, the second tower, the one a bit further to the south of us, has collapsed. We are checking on that.
Well, again, it does appear that the second tower of the World Trade Center has collapsed. 1010 Winds Account Executive Joan Fleischer was looking at the building, and boy, it was just 3 minutes ago. And Joan, what did you see?
Oh, well, lots of smoke, and then the next thing I heard, an explosion, and the building from the top, the south building, just crumbled. Just completely went down. I saw it. It's hard to see all the pieces, but you can see it tipping over and just crashing to the ground. Now, I don't even know where it crumbled from on the south building because there's so much smoke I can't see anything now. All I can tell you is that the fire seems to have spread on the north building now because I can see the flames on the south side, which I couldn't see before.
Well, we can only hope that they had gotten everybody or the majority of the people out of that building before it collapsed. But again, these are enormous buildings, and obviously, let's hope that they have the area around those buildings cleared out. We've had no reports of casualties. Obviously, there are going to be more than a few in the wake of this. If you're just joining us this morning, you're in for a horrific surprise. Both buildings of the World Trade Center have been hit by aircraft, and the South Tower of the World Trade Center has apparently collapsed in a pile of dust. Let's go to 1010 Winds editor Jim Maloney. He was in Hoboken waiting to get into the tunnel when this happened.
Yoli, and the scene here is just one right out of one of the movies you would see in Hollywood. People walking around with cell phones in tears, holding their heads, looking up at what's left of the World Trade Center, just shaking their heads in disbelief. The entire side of New Jersey now is totally affected by this and has been for quite some time. The tunnels are shut down, people are milling around, but not knowing what to do, not knowing where to go. It's a scene just of utter chaos, and just wondering what happened to those folks in the Trade Center just makes it all the worse. Lee?
All right, 1010 Winds newsman Jim Maloney, who was watching the South Tower of the World Trade Center when it went down, and he is stuck at the Lincoln Tunnel. All of the tunnels, both leading from New Jersey into New York City, have been shut down, as has the George Washington Bridge. All air traffic in the United States has been suspended until at least 5 o'clock in the wake of this. Let's get brought up to date on what has transpired in about the last last hour and 15 minutes in this country, in this world. Here's 1010 Wins newsman James Faraday. James.
Okay, Lee, and to recap, two planes, of course, crashed into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in Lower Manhattan this morning. The aircraft, first one, crashed into the upper floors of one of the towers. That is the one with the TV and radio antenna on top. Witnesses reported hearing a huge explosion and heavy black smoke could be seen pouring out of the building. Wreckage was also seen embedded in the upper floors of the skyscraper, and ever since has been raining down onto the streets of Lower Manhattan. Shortly afterward, a second plane hit the other tower. That is the tower with the observation deck on top. The Associated Press has learned the FBI is investigating reports that the two crashes are the result of foul play. Of course, there's no word on casualties, but suffice to say the loss of life presumably profound. Given the magnitude of this disaster, the South Tower of the World Trade Center just minutes ago collapsed to the ground. Only one tower is standing at this point. President Bush, speaking in Florida, was quick to react to this tragedy.
I have spoken to the Vice President, to the Governor of New York, to the Director of the FBI, and have ordered that the full resources of the federal government go to help the victims and their families, and to conduct a full-scale investigation to hunt down and to find those folks who committed this act.
This is not only a New York story. In Washington, word that the Pentagon has been struck. A plane crashed into the Pentagon this morning. CNN's Chris Plant is in the nation's capital.
And speaking to people here at the Pentagon as they're being evacuated from the building, I am told by several people that there was, in fact, an explosion. I was told by one witness, an Air Force senior enlisted man, that he was outside when it occurred. He said that he saw a helicopter circle the building. He said that it appeared to be a U.S. military helicopter and that it disappeared behind the building where the helicopter landing zone is, and that he then saw a fireball go into the sky.
That fireball was apparently from a plane. An Associated Press reporter on the scene saw the tail end of a large airliner launch into the Pentagon. Of course, the Pentagon has been evacuated along with the West Wing of the White House, the Capitol, all major branches of the United States government evacuated this morning. In Chicago, the Sears Tower has been evacuated as a precautionary measure. No threat has been made against Chicago's tallest building at this point. The New York Stock Exchange has been shut down. The State Department has been evacuated. The Associated Press has learned the White House has been evacuated after the Secret Service received a credible threat of a terrorist act against the mansion. The State Department, as we mentioned, also evacuated. Fox News Channel's Jim Engel is at the White House and has the very latest.
The roads around the White House, the streets around the White House were blocked seconds ago. Members of the Uniform Division of the Secret Service ran out to intersections and started diverting traffic. There are emergency vehicles on almost every block around the White House. The road south of the White House has also been blocked. And as you know, the White House is being evacuated. Federal employees are standing on the street corners in and around the White House, having left the building for fear of another attack.
President Bush is now flying to Washington from Florida, where he's scheduled an educational event. The president's plane, Air Force One, nationwide. 1010 Wins continuous coverage moves on now with 1010 Wins anchor Judy DeAngelis.
As you said, it is an absolutely unreal sight. You see the pictures side by side of New York and Washington billowing smoke. The collapse of the World Trade Center. 1010 Wins reporter Eileen LaPalmer is down in Lower Manhattan. We're going to try and get to her live now and see if she can give us any more information. Eileen, are you there?
Yeah, Judy, I'm here. Well, all I can tell you is, as you can imagine, absolute chaos. People were running, panicking just when the smoke and flames were billowing out. People were trying to head down south towards the World Trade Center when suddenly there was a large rumbling and the entire tower fell and collapsed to the ground. People came running north because of the smoke. It was billowing up Broadway. There's a big black cloud of smoke. You can't even see down Broadway from the vantage point of City Hall. I've now looked inside a building, but all the buildings...
This video footage was filmed by Richard A. Siegel. Rick Siegel was a child prodigy who was recruited by numerous Fortune 500 companies for his problem-solving and computer skills in the years leading up to 2001. He was a pioneer in the field of Internet television webcasting and had aired over 5,000 hours of original programming through his own company Online TV as of September 11, 2001. He was a frequent visitor on business to both the North and South Towers and held security passes at the time of the tragedy.
Yeah, hi, I'm Rick Siegel. This is about where I was on the day that the 9/11 tragedy occurred when the two towers were hit. I was in the shower. I was in the bed when I heard the first one, and I got the report and ran into the shower, got showered, and came down on my Zappy scooter with all my stuff and zoomed in here, set up my cameras on tripods so that I could watch with my binoculars, and started filming the Twin Towers as they were burning. Yeah. At least the building was in the frame, and the whole building, so I could get to smoke the building and what was happening. I was hoping you could see the plane out of it, but there was no plane to see out of that. And it was just a hole and black smoke. You just see it look like a cigar standing up on end with burning tip and black smoke. Which again, why black smoke? It's ready to go out. And then, yeah, it went on, and the building was it was just burning away, and it wasn't too exciting until all of a sudden it's disappearing, and there was no real sign. There was no sign that anything was that this was going to go down. It was all the black smoke. And the black smoke is really indicative that the fire's out, so you're waiting for all the sludge to go away and the fire departments to get up there and do their jobs, because buildings don't fall down like that. It was like the biggest shock, and no one, that's talking about a shock to see a building fall down. Thank God. I mean, a big one. It's like they're designed not to fall down. They're designed not to blow over. And like they said about this, it was designed for a 707 to run into it. And it took it. Two big jets flew into both the buildings, and they didn't fall. They're saying they fell because they were on fire. That doesn't make sense.
Let's take another look at how the South Tower was turned into a pile of dust.
And the smoke is billowing, still heading towards Brooklyn. You can smell the smoke from here. It's coming from the entire area of both buildings. It's unbelievable.
Well, this really is a case of a situation that you thought couldn't get any worse, getting progressively worse.
Yes.
First one plane crashing into the World Trade Center, then a second crashing into the second tower of the World Trade Center.
Unbelievable.
Word now that a plane has crashed into the Pentagon. It has been evacuated along with the West Wing of the White House. The Treasury has been evacuated. The Capitol evacuated. The Sears Tower in Chicago has been evacuated. There was no threat of an attack against the Sears Tower, but they're obviously going to quit while they're ahead there. And all of this, the world...
Oh, wait. Oh, my God. Oh, my God, the building fell. Are you there? The building just fell.
Which?
Oh, my God, the South building just crumbled from the top. Oh, my God, the building just fell. The entire World Trade Center on the South building just fell. I just saw the whole thing. Oh, my God.
Rick saw what looked like a military helicopter rescue. What could those bright flashes be? Why did the bright flashes occur just before the collapse?
I'm watching in my binoculars, and I got in there, just the guy and the helicopter line, and all of a sudden the guy's out of my view, but you think you moved or something, and I'm like, where is it? And I had to look, because from the angle you only get a sliver of the second building. And I had to look, I'm like, is it there? And everybody's screaming, and the noise is starting to come, and it's, then I realized it was like this yellowish gray because of the powder and dust that had fallen underneath, and it still left colors. And this ominous color was there instead of a building, and there was, instead of the grayness of a building through smoke, it was light coming through. There was no more building there.
Now let's use freeze frame analysis and take a closer look at those flashes. This west approach path is not visible to the pool camera angles shared by major networks broadcasting live.
Well, this really is a case of a situation that you thought couldn't get any worse, getting progressively worse.
Yes.
First one plane crashing into the World Trade Center, then a second.
And when I was watching out there, helicopters were around it. It was up on the edge. Looked like he's dropping a line out, and underneath, these guys are hanging out the window. And the windows were basically in the building from here, from your knee, up to about there. So to get an idea of what it would look like, and you can see with the binoculars, you can see the person, and people were jumping. It had to be hot to make that decision. And he's hanging out there.
And World Trade Center, then a second crashing into the second tower of the World Trade Center.
Unbelievable.
Word now that a plane has crashed.
And it looked like he was lowering a line. And a single prop helicopter. It looked black. Didn't look like it was white. It wasn't a news helicopter.
Word now that a plane has crashed into the Pentagon. It has been evacuated along with the west wing of the White House. The Treasury has been evacuated. The Capitol evacuated. The Sears Tower in Chicago has been evacuated. There was no threat of an attack against the Sears Tower, but they're obviously going to quit while they're ahead there. And all of this, the world...
Oh, wait. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. The building fell. Are you there? The building just fell.
Which?
Oh, my God. The South building just crumbled from the top. Oh, my God. The building just fell. The entire World Trade Center on the South building just fell. I just saw the whole thing. Oh, my God.
If you're just joining us this morning, you're in for a horrific surprise. Both buildings of the World Trade Center have been hit by aircraft, and the South Tower of the World Trade Center has apparently collapsed in a pile of dust. What did you see?
Oh, lots of smoke, and then the next thing I heard an explosion, and the building from the top, the South building, just crumbled.
This is 1010 Winds, WINS New York. One of the
completely down.
Two towers, the South Tower of the World Trade Center, has just crumbled, collapsed in a pile of dust. This approximately less than an hour after it was hit by an aircraft.
The second building completely down.
Actually, the one in the back was the one that tilted. I thought it fell. It looked like it went like this, and I saw it, and it disappears, and I'm like, the building fell into Manhattan. Those towers, that would have been 2-3 blocks of high-rises wiped out. And somehow, however that could be, that building, I saw some of the other angles and things, and the building, and then slid down or something into how the hell it does that with inertia, and I can't imagine how that could naturally occur.
Let's take another look at the dust clouds and what caused them before World Trade Center 2 fell.
The Holland tunnels, they are also closed down. Let's go to 1010 Winds reporter Eileen LaPalmer. She is at City Hall. Eileen?
Well, Lee, I'm here live outside of City Hall. The entire, as you can imagine, it is absolute chaos here. The entire city has come to a standstill. Everyone just standing, looking at the smoke pouring out of the World Trade Center at this moment. There are certain people trying to call their families. All the cell phones are down, as you can imagine, since there are these tribes at the World Trade Center is the antennas where people would be calling on the cell phones. Therefore, people are lining up around the block just to use a payphone at this point. Everyone's still trying to figure out what's going on. I ran into this woman named Susan. She was supposed to be in the World Trade Center today at this very moment. Again, at this point, everything is shut down. The Woolworth building has been evacuated. City Hall is shut down and also has been evacuated. We will bring you more as soon as we have it. Eileen LaPalmer, 1010 Wins, live outside of City Hall.
Okay, and now we have word from Washington that the Capitol and the Treasury are being evacuated. This in addition to the White House and to the Pentagon. The Pentagon apparently having been hit by a plane this morning, not unlike the World Trade Center Twin Towers, both of which appear to have been on the news of what had transpired here in New York City this morning. If you are a New York City firefighter, you are ordered to report to your station immediately. We need the help this morning with a major disaster unfolding in New York City, and the world has changed markedly in little less than an hour. When we first got word that a plane had crashed into the World Trade Center, we then saw a second plane crash into the second tower of the World Trade Center. We later got word of a plane apparently crashing into the Pentagon, word that the White House had been evacuated, now the Capitol and the Treasury also having been evacuated. What we have not heard yet are casualty figures for what is obviously a massive disaster at the World Trade Center, and there is no doubt massive loss of life there. We've been talking to various reporters, people who've been trying to get to the scene, people who have been watching it unfold from all parts of the city, because the World Trade Center obviously is visible for many, many miles, and it's hard to miss when there is smoke and a massive explosion coming out of it. The first we heard was from 1010 Wins account executive Joan Fleischer. She was the first to call this in. Joan, you're still there?
I'm here.
Okay, you've been watching this on a rooftop with friends and neighbors, and how would you gauge their reaction at this point?
Everyone is in shock. People can't believe what they heard or they saw. They've been running downstairs to keep an eye on TV, but I haven't left this area since I called you at first, and it's unbelievable. I mean, they're still bringing in all the police and the fire trucks. They're ongoing. The smoke is unbelievable. It doesn't even look like they've been able to do anything other than respond to, I guess, emergencies on ground, because there's nothing happening within the building that I can see from here on top. They have police helicopters overhead, I think, to keep everybody else away. And the smoke is building, still heading towards Brooklyn. You can smell the smoke from here. It's coming from the entire area of both buildings. It's unbelievable.
Well, this really is a case of a situation that you thought couldn't get any worse, getting progressively worse.
Yes.
First one plane crashing into the World Trade Center, then a second crashing into the second tower of the World Trade Center.
Unbelievable.
Word now that a plane has crashed into the Pentagon. It has been evacuated along with the west wing of the White House. The Treasury has been evacuated. The Capitol evacuated. The Sears Tower in Chicago has been evacuated. There was no threat of an attack against the Sears Tower, but they're obviously going to quit while they're ahead there.
As Chopper 4 emerges from the smoke above the North Tower, its white belly becomes visible from another camera angle near the church on the other side of the building. Is this a genuine New York Police Department air-sea rescue chopper that simply decided not to rescue anyone? Or is it participating in the tripod emergency war game exercise FEMA started running September 10th at the World Trade Center from the Port Authority headquarters, Pier 92, and being ordered not to rescue anyone? As the South Tower begins to fall, we can see a dark smoke collapse zone at the top and the corner structure intact. A light-colored dust detonation zone quickly progresses down the side of the tower while the corner structure remains intact. Within 3 seconds, the detonation zone has become roughly 30 stories tall, with the dark smoke collapse zone far above. Police evacuated Hoboken Pier to make room for the survivors.
And once it went down, the cop, he was on the thing walking, okay guys, you got to get out because this is going to be a landing zone. Because you can see, they were going to use these piers and bring them in, to bring in the wounded but then all of a sudden there was nothing there. So it's like, where did all the parts and people go? Nobody was hurt. Either you disappeared off the face of the earth or you had a few scratches. And I went down to the next pier to do the next building because the Frank Sinatra Pier was open, and so it's 3 more blocks down. Didn't make a difference, and I'm not going to sit here and argue because I know it's just happened, and I was hoping there's supposed to be survivors, and it was great that they would be coming here to get fixed, and
Now let's return to Rick's original footage. Next, we feature the collapse of the North Tower World Trade Center 1.
Smoke, not really sure what's in the debris, what's in the smoke. In that crowd running, I ran into a woman who, as I said before, was in Tower 2. She escaped, and she is here.
Yes, I was in the building.
Belinda, you were in the building?
I was on the 92nd floor, number 2. And I didn't see the first plane crash, but I was on the lower floor when the second plane crashed into number 2. And my brother's a photojournalist, and he's down there now. I hope he's okay.
How did you get out?
I walked down 92 floors, and I stopped on the 70-something floor because they said everything was okay, and the second plane crashed.
Into the second building, right?
Yeah.
What happened? So it was the first Tower 1 was hit first?
Yeah.
So at this point, obviously, everyone's trying to locate their family and friends, as well as get themselves to safety. The area around here at City Hall is under lockdown. All the buildings are being evacuated. Everyone is being told to move north. Eileen LaPalmer, live for 1010 Wins, outside of City Hall.
We haven't heard yet from Mayor Giuliani, but I understand that he does plan to address us at some point. Eileen?
Yes, we are trying to locate where the mayor is. Obviously, usually when there is crisis situations, he would be down at the Office of Emergency Management, which is down at the World Trade Center. We cannot find him right now. City Hall is also evacuated and locked down. Obviously, for security reasons, we will let you know as soon as we know when the mayor will speak with us.
Okay, as to how all this happened, it's becoming increasingly apparent that this was a terrorist attack. President Bush as much as said so about an hour ago, what with...
Let's fast forward Rick's footage while we examine why so many helicopter flights merely passed by the towers without any attempted rescue. As reported in the Gotham Gazette in November 2001, the police and fire departments were in disagreement about how to respond to the attack. Here we can see the standard equipment carried by Air Sea Rescue. In 1993, the New York Police Department successfully rescued 28 people from the top of the tower. Veteran helicopter rescue pilots quoted by the Journal say a rescue of a few dozen people would have been difficult but possible in 2001. However, police helicopters hovered nearby but were ordered away from the towers.
Tom Kennedy, a rescue worker with the National Urban Search and Rescue. It's part of FEMA.
We're currently one of the first teams that was deployed to support the city of New York for this disaster. We arrived on late Monday night and went into action on Tuesday morning. And not until today did we get a full opportunity to work the entire site.
All the Port Authority bridges and tunnels closed down. Nothing's taking off. All the airports are closed down. The roads are closed down. The twin disaster at the World Trade Center happening shortly before 9 a.m., then right around 9 a.m., and then just a little while ago, a third explosion, which actually brought down the South Tower. 1010 Wins reporter Juliet Papa is down around City Hall. Let's try and get through to her now and see what's happening down there. Juliet.
Judy, I am at the intersection of Broadway and Chambers Street, where it looks as if police are trying to virtually evacuate the whole lower Manhattan area. When I saw the smoke resulting from the crash of the towers going down, people were running up the block. They were running up Broadway. They were running up on 7th Avenue South, running in a panic northbound from the area. I had been trying to get down here in a car. I was on 7th Avenue South going over to
Broadway, and as I heard Joe Fleischer on our broadcast live saying that the towers collapsed, I saw the billow of smoke that resulted from that. People with fear stricken all over their faces, just running up the block. Right now, it appears as if I said that the entire area is being evacuated. There are police walking around, just directing people, citizens that are walking around, directing traffic and directing people out. More emergency vehicles are on their way down here. You might hear the sirens as I speak. They are just continuing to go. I spoke with EMS a while ago. I managed to get through to them, and they said, don't even think about trying to get a tally on injured or fatalities. So that was about 45 minutes ago before the towers went down. So we cannot even begin to guess what havoc this has wreaked. But as I said, it appears that all of this is being evacuated. I am being asked to get off this phone right now, and police are just trying to clear the whole area. Juliette Hoblet, 1010 Winds, reporting live from Chambers and Broadway.
And we are just now receiving word that all international flights to Washington, D.C. and New York City are being diverted to Canadian airports. Air lockdown in the airspace across the entire United States, and of course here in the city nothing is going in or going out. 1010 Winds News Director Ben Beverak is at the Manhattan Bridge. Let's check in with him. Ben.
Judy, I have a direct line of sight to what is left of the World Trade Center. The fire continues to burn. I can see the flames through the thick smoke. As I walk through Brooklyn to get to this position, I can tell you, as Juliette alluded to, the bridge has pretty much been blocked off. Everyone is being diverted. There is just no way into the city except for emergency vehicles. I did pass through a couple of parks and on some of the streets, and before, when I reported about an hour ago, there were people at their gas pumps who turned to look at the smoke that was coming from the city. Folks stepping out of bodegas and stores to look. Now people are gathering in large groups. In fact, in one corner, I saw a group of people actually holding hands and praying. As I stand on the Manhattan Bridge, which is closed, it is open to pedestrian traffic. Some people are walking in crowds, but there's just no way for them to, as I look out, something is that I can't see. Is that the building going down? Is that the building going down? I think the second building, the World Trade Center going down.
Yes, that is the second tower. That is the second tower.
And then the building just disappearing in the smoke. It is an incredible sight. People around with a big I cannot even describe it. It is one of those real moments where you just can't describe it. It looked as though it was a puff of cloud, almost like a firework explosion of cloud. No noise with it. And then all of a sudden, I just blinked my eyes. I looked up at a bunch of people in the background going, oh my God. And the second building appears to have gone down.
Yes, you're absolutely right, Ben. That is the second building that has gone down. It came out like a plume of smoke, like a banana unpeeling. Plumes of smoke coming out, and then absolutely nothing. And now where there were two huge buildings, two huge towers, there is now nothing but plumes of smoke. Can you still see where you're looking at, Ben?
All I see now is the clouds are beginning to drift away, and it is nice. The building is blue sky behind it, and it is a remarkable nice location. You know, when you come into the city, you look around the panorama view, you see the Empire State Building, you see the Chrysler Building, then you pan down to the mountains, and you always expect to see the World Trade Center towers there. It's half you just expect to see it now. It's looking there. To see it naked, except for a cloud of smoke, it is just incredible.
Well, then what we're going to do is we're going to go over to Joan Fleischer, because she actually has a bird's eye view of what's happening. So thank you very much, Ben. We'll get back to you shortly. Joan, I understand that you are still on the roof of your building in Lower Manhattan, yes?
Still watching.
Still watching. Now, we just saw moments ago the second of the Twin Towers collapsing to the ground.
That's correct. That's correct. It just went down. No explosion, just a puff of smoke, and it went down.
So you heard nothing, no explosion?
I didn't hear any explosion. All I saw was a big, like a puff of smoke, and then it just went down. And I can't see. I mean, I'm on the top of a 6th floor building, but I can't see any of the World Trade Towers at all.
Now, Joan, and I should say that you are one of the account executives here at 1010 Winds. You have been with us since the beginning, since this first started. You called in and told us about the very first explosion that occurred. You were there when the second one occurred. And this has been just a surreal experience.
It's unbelievable. I can't explain it. From the start to now, the sky is completely blue except for white smoke clouds. That are forming clouds. There's no world. The skyline is completely different. There's no Twin Towers.
All right, now we are getting word, no confirmation yet. D.C. police apparently are saying that, D.C. police plane, rather, I should say. Let me get that correct. A D.C. police plane has been hijacked, is now en route to Washington. We do not know anything more than this at this point. It has not been confirmed. We do not know the intentions of this plane, only that we are receiving word that a D.C. police plane hijacked and is now en route to Washington. This is just literally becoming more bizarre by the second. In a day when everybody was saying it is the primary, it is snooze city, it has gone from being absolute, incomprehensible mayhem. The sight horrendous. You have been watching this the whole morning from your roof, Joan.
D.C. police plane.
All right, Joan is now talking to somebody else. You know what, Joan, what we're going to do now is thank you very much. We're going to get back to you. Stay with us. We're going to go to Al Jones, reporter Al Jones, who is now on Hudson Street. Al, can you hear me?
Well, Judy, it was absolute pandemonium when another part of the South Tower came down here. I'm at Hudson between Duane and Reed. We were standing on the street when we heard what sounded like a plane coming overhead, but actually it was the roar of more of the building coming down. People running down the street, screaming, this huge dust cloud filling the sky. We dipped into one of the buildings here. A supervisor, lucky enough, opened up the door, let us in as this huge cloud went by of debris, and you could hear the roar of the building continuing to fall. I ran into a fellow, Tom Colden, who was on the 64th floor of the North Tower. When the first plane hit, he said everything was orderly, they were evacuating, but when the second explosion occurred and they lost power, lost lights, it was pandemonium. He said they just rushed down the stairs. Firefighters were there to try to lead him out, but he came out dazed, covered with soot, covered with ash, just staggering away from the building, lucky to be alive. Al Jones, 1010 Winds, reporting live from outside the World Trade Towers.
This has been an absolutely unbelievable morning. The news is breaking almost faster than we can get it to you, and right now we are going to go to 1010 Winds reporter John Montone. John, are you there?
Yes, I am, Judy, and I have to describe the most incredible scene of my life. Right after I got off the air with Lee about an hour ago, I was talking to people on Broadway, getting descriptions of what they had seen.
No, it's like not even just a building, it's all those people that left. It's like that was what happened in this place, is that there were so many like women who lost their husbands here, and watching them go down and trying to reach them on their cell phones with no response, and then watching their heartbreaks and stuff. The breakdown of the I think on the tape if you hear there's some crying in the girl, and it was just heart-wrenching and terrible. And then finally a jet comes up the river, and like you see, you got these fighter jets look cool. This is but I didn't feel thrilled anymore. Instead I'm like, where were you? What the hell are you doing here so late? We needed you. They weren't there. Makes you feel not American anymore, you know? You want to stand up for it, but you can't stand up for that. Yeah, where were you guys?
Let's take a closer look at the free-fall collapse of the North Tower. We will begin with the digital editing system used to produce this program. It contains all the features we need to examine the raw footage in detail, such as video window, time code counter, audio waveform, and sound level meters.
The bridges have pretty much been blocked off. Everyone is being diverted. There is just no way into the city except for emergency vehicles. I did pass through a couple of parks and on some of the streets, and before, when I reported about an hour ago, there were people at their gas pumps who turned to look at the smoke that was coming from the city. Folks stepping out of bodegas and stores to look. Now people are gathering in large groups. In fact, in one corner, I saw a group of people actually holding hands and praying. As I stand on the Manhattan Bridge, which is closed, it is open to pedestrian traffic. Some people are walking across, but there's just no way for them to. As I look out, something is that I can't.
Next, we will rearrange the key elements so that it will be easier to see that indeed a massive explosion occurs before any changes in the North Tower, World Trade Center 1 are visible.
Being diverted, there is just no way into the city except for emergency vehicles. I did pass through a couple of parks and on some of the streets, and before, when I reported about an hour ago, there were people at their gas pumps who turned to look at the smoke that was coming from the city. Folks stepping out of bodegas and stores to look. Now people are gathering in large groups. In fact, in one corner, I saw a group of people actually holding hands and praying. As I stand on the Manhattan Bridge, which is closed, it is open to pedestrian traffic. Some people are walking across, but there's just no way for them to. As I look out, something happens. I can't.
Witnesses reported an earthquake-type rumbling and street-level dust clouds before each tower fell. These claims were ignored and disregarded because no video evidence was available. Listen to the massive explosion and watch a cloud of dust rise up from the street between two waterfront buildings well before the North Tower World Trade Center 1 starts to fall.
The bridge is pretty much been blocked off. Everyone is being diverted. There is just no way into the city except for emergency vehicles. I did pass through a couple of parks and on some of the streets, and before, when I reported about an hour ago, there were people at their gas pumps who turned to look at the smoke that was coming from the city. Folks stepping out of bodegas and stores to look. Now people are gathering in large groups. In fact, in one corner, I saw a group of people actually holding hands and praying. As I stand on the Manhattan Bridge, which is closed, it is open to pedestrian traffic. Some people are walking across, but there's just no way for them to. As I look out, something happens. I can't.
You know, I don't go for the official story because it's got so many holes. And I can't really go too much for those radical stories because they're so shocking it drives me nuts. So, but I know there's grains of truth in everything there. And it just would take somebody to get somebody who's knowledgeable, take the materials and actually do it. But would the Americans listen? Would the world even listen?
Rick moved to the Frank Sinatra Pier to continue filming the North Tower, located across the Hudson River from the World Trade Center site on Manhattan Island. By using a professional illustration software, we can determine the camera's distance. 600 meters is approximately 20 millimeters on this map, giving us a 30 meters per millimeter scale. 1,800 feet comes to approximately 18 millimeters, giving us a 100 feet per millimeter scale. Next, we measure the diagonal distance to be approximately 104 millimeters. If we multiply this distance by our metric scale, we get a 3,120 meter distance. Our imperial scale gives us a 10,400 foot distance. Adjusting for the 65-degree morning temperature, the speed of sound and air is approximately 343 meters per second, giving us a sound delay of 9.1 seconds. 1,124 feet per second yields a 9.3 second delay. Averaging the two results gives us 9.2 seconds required for the sound from the World Trade Center to reach Rick's camera at Frank Sinatra Pier, roughly 1.8 miles away. To adjust for the World Trade Center sound delay caused by the estimated 1.8 mile distance from the World Trade Center to the camera's location, we must subtract 9.2 seconds. Please note that people beside the camera will begin to react 9.2 seconds earlier than they actually did. To compensate for the speed of sound, we must shift the audio track earlier by 9.2 seconds, or 9 seconds plus 6 frames of video. Next, we will add 9.2 seconds of video to cover the sound. Digital audio meters will illustrate the volume peaks of significant sound pressure waves. A high level plus short duration gives us an energy wave pulse traveling across the water in a direct line of sight 1.8 miles to the camera at Frank Sinatra Pier.
I passed through a couple of parks and on some of the streets, and before, when I reported about an hour ago, there were people at their gas pumps who turned to look at the smoke that was coming from the city. Folks stepping out of bodegas and stores to look. Now people are gathering in large groups. In fact, in one corner I saw a group of people actually holding hands and praying. As I stand on the Manhattan Bridge, which is closed, it is open to pedestrian traffic. Some people are walking around, but there's just no way for them to... as I look out, something happens. I can't...
This time, we will record when the sound meters peaked to determine the timing of the strongest sound pressure waves. The original digital sound recording contains very significant peak events of short duration, typical of drum beats and high-speed, high-power explosives. The first massive sound peak at -17 seconds is followed by clouds of smoke and dust rising from the base of the tower. An internal and cascade series of sharp peaks are also evident before and during the tower's fall.
I did pass through a couple of parks and on some of the streets, and before, when I reported about an hour ago, there were people at their gas pumps who turned to look at the smoke that was coming from the city. Stepping out of bodegas and stores to look. Now people are gathering in large... Now people are gathering in large groups. In fact, in one corner I saw a group of people actually holding hands and praying. As I stand on the Manhattan Bridge, which is closed. As I stand on the Manhattan Bridge, which is closed, it is open to pedestrian traffic. Some people are walking around. Some people are walking around, but there's just no way for them to... as I look out, something... as I look out, something happens. I can't...
When the second building came down, it left that spire, which I guess is what they called the center core. And I saw it, it looked like a church spire in there. But then that's like, whew, and that's like, what knocked that down? There was no fire on the bottom and certainly no more pressure on it. So how come that all of a sudden decided it would fall too? It's a strange occurrence, but I tell you, at the time I didn't think of it, but saw the spire and I thought, oh, the building, you know, we're going to have this huge wreck sitting there, and like, it went. Now, how did the whole thing go down?
How did the whole thing go down? Let's summarize the World Trade Center 1 event.
I did pass through a couple of parks and on some of the streets, and before, when I reported about an hour ago, there were people at their gas pumps who turned to look at the smoke that was coming from the city, folks stepping out of bodegas and stores to look. Now people are gathering in large groups. In fact, in one corner, I saw a group of people actually holding hands and praying. As I stand on the Manhattan Bridge, which is closed, it is open to pedestrian traffic. Some people are walking in crowds, but there's just no way for them to, as I look out, something is that I can't
Yeah, and that 7, I didn't even know where it was. I never heard of Building 7, never knew where it was. I said, how did Building 7? What? It's way over here. What the hell's that going down for? Yeah, okay, I'll film that too. What the hell? And sat at the pier and sat and sat and sat. They said, oh, it's going to come down. I wish I had known, but they didn't say they were going to take it down at 5:30. It was like, and then like, tuk. So I already hit, I was running out of film, and I said, oh, I'll put it on stop motion. Because if, you know, the minute I start seeing it, I'll, but it went and the tuk. That's it, gone. I'm like, wow, and it's a tiny little building. What happened to you? And there were other buildings all around. Nobody else went down. And like, and again, I got asked, I'd never seen in my life steel buildings falling. That was why they built them. They said they were safer, they didn't burn. So it's, yeah, there's so many questions, right? It's hard to buy into all of it. And while I hate to think that people you trust are stabbing you in the back, history shows they don't just do it on occasion, but they do it all the time, and they only get caught on occasion.
Let's return to Rick's original footage. Next, we feature the first steel frame collapse due to fire in history, World Trade Center 7. Rick used time-lapse mode to conserve tape, so 2 seconds of real-time recording is followed by a 6-second pause. The first footage is shortened and speeded up to get straight to the collapse.
Here's an update now from the 1010 Winds newsroom. Later tonight, we expect to hear from President Bush. That plane was to be used, and here's Matt Ward.
Management difficulties around the area. New Jersey Transit outbound Hoboken Terminal operating on a load-and-go basis, no inbound service, and also out of Newark Penn Station, limited service on the Northeast Corridor and North Jersey coastlines and the Raritan line as well, and limited service from Penn Station and New York.
It does appear that building number 7 has just collapsed. We've been telling you that building was on fire. Building number 7 at the trade complex has now apparently collapsed. We also have reports that building number 5 might be on fire too, but now a huge amount of smoke and debris now up in that area again because of this building number 7 going down. Al Jones just saw building number 7 go down at the World Trade Center. It's collapsed, Al?
Hey, you know, we've seen so much today with the collapse of number 1 and number 2. Folks standing here on the corner of Leonard Street and West Broadway. We were just sitting here watching all the smoke pouring up from number 7. Number 7 is the kind of reddish-brown building that's towards the north end of the complex. And although we really couldn't see much damage on it, there was smoke pouring out of it here for hours. And folks just kind of standing around, milling about it. And then I wasn't watching. I just could tell from the reaction of the crowd what had happened because I'd heard it already before. The gasp, the screams, people immediately turning and starting to run, even though we're probably a dozen blocks from the center itself. People starting to run away from the scene. And I turned in time to see what looked like a skyscraper implosion. It looked like it had been done by a demolition crew. The whole thing just collapsing down on itself, and another big, huge plume of gray and white smoke shooting up into the air, and then more of the smoke billowing up the street here. So that's number 1, number 2, and now number 7 that have come down from this explosion.
explosion, and folks just simply can't believe it.
Well, Al, I didn't realize because the other towers are so big, but number 7 is 47 stories. That was a huge building in its own right.
Right. It was the one that kind of was dwarfed by the other two. It was kind of a reddish brown, and it more or less ran east and west. It was a long, thin building, but it had been damaged and it had been on fire for hours, and the smoke just seemed to intensify. But we really couldn't see a lot of damage from this angle, from the north side of the structures. That's why everybody was so surprised when all of a sudden it just fell.
Now, the other thing, too, we presume it has been burning for some time. As you indicated, there was nobody inside, and we hope no danger to anybody when it went down.
Well, that's the thing is that when number 2 went down, I don't think, and I know I'll put myself in that group, I never thought these things would fall down. I mean, we were watching them. You could see them burning. A lot of it was damaged. There was fire coming out of the top, but I just never for the life of me thought that these huge buildings that have been here so long would actually just fall. And that's what happened. They just crumbled.
Well, as reporters, you kind of run to the scene, and that's what happened with some of the firefighters and police, too. They ran to the scene, and, of course, with devastating results.
And that's what the thing is, with all the triage that's been set up around that area and all the people that were being treated and all the emergency personnel that are close to it, you only hope that they were far enough back so that when this came down, that they were all out of harm's way.
Because, as you suggested, we never thought they would go down.
No, the gasp from the crowd here was all you needed to know that this just shocked everybody again.
That is 1010 Wins reporter Al Jones with the news and giving us that description of World Trade Center building number 7 going down, a 47-story building. That, too, is gone. Let's go to 1010 Wins reporter Eileen LaPalmer. Eileen?
All right, Ralph, I'm here on Hudson Street. As you've been hearing, that 7 World Trade Center just collapsed about 5 minutes ago. Suddenly we saw officers, tons and tons of, maybe 100 officers, police officers, running north, running along Hudson Street, telling people to move, get out of the way. Again, the smoke was billowing north, and people were running. I'm here with an emergency worker. He's a first-year NYU medical student. He was down there. He was trying to help people. His name is Daryl.
Yeah, so I was just standing there, we were watching the building actually because it was on fire. The bottom floors of the building were on fire, and we heard this sound that sounded like a clap of thunder. Turned around, we were shocked to see that the building was it looked like there was a shock wave ripping through the building, and the windows all busted out. And it was horrifying. And then about a second later, the bottom floor caves out, and the building followed after that, and we saw the building crash down all the way to the ground. We were in shock, and then the worst part about it, we saw the smoke and the plumes of smoke coming after us, and we had to run. We had to run north actually on that street. We just ran north to escape from the smoke, and luckily we weren't hurt, but it was certainly very, very scary. Yeah, that was about it.
Okay, and Daryl and his friends, they are NYU medical students. They are going to go back and help with the emergency.
It was at least a month. I sat every day. I'd come out just to look and sit in the evening. And the wind's this way, always on my back. And I thought such a blessing for me, but I have plenty of friends in that direction. So on the other side of Manhattan, and they're going to suffer, and they have children and young kids, and Brooklyn is this family neighborhood, and now they're going to sit there, and they weren't warned, no relocate. I guess the government looks at it, how can we relocate all these people, or tell them wow, we have to get out of here for a while, because at least you're going to be breathing for a month, some horrible things.
Let's take another look at what happened to 7 World Trade. From the viewpoint of the televised footage, we can clearly see the outline of World Trade Center 7 as it falls.
Fire for hours, and the smoke just seemed to intensify, but we really couldn't see a lot of damage from this angle, from the north side of the structures. That's why everybody was so surprised when all of a sudden it just fell. I just never for the life of me thought that these huge buildings that have been here so long would actually just fall, and that's what happened. They just crumbled.
On the left, we have televised footage, and on the right is Rick's original footage.
Here's an update now from the 1010 Wins newsroom.
There is no adjustment for sound delay.
Later tonight, we expect to hear from President Bush. This was also, that plane was to be used. And here's Matt Ward.
Difficulties around the area. New Jersey Transit outbound Hoboken Terminal operating on a load-and-go basis, no inbound service, and also out of Newark Penn Station, limited service on the Northeast Corridor and North Jersey coastlines and the Raritan line as well, and limited service from Penn Station New York and to Penn Station in Newark.
The sound delay has now been removed.
Later tonight, we expect to hear from President Bush. This was also, that plane was to be used. And here's Matt Ward.
Difficulties around the area. New Jersey Transit outbound Hoboken Terminal operating on a load-and-go basis, no inbound service, and also out of Newark Penn Station, limited service on the Northeast Corridor and North Jersey coastlines.
Later tonight, we expect to hear from President Bush. This was also, that plane was to be used.
Now let's use forward and reverse to analyze the shock wave that ripped through the building.
You know, we heard this sound that sounded like a clap of thunder. Turned around, we were shocked to see that the building was, well, it looked like there was a shock wave ripping through the building, and the windows all busted out, and, you know, it was horrifying. And then, you know, about a second later, the bottom floor caves out, and the building followed after that, and we saw the building crash down all the way to the ground. You know, we were in shock.
Difficulties around the area. New Jersey Transit outbound Hoboken Terminal operating on a load-and-go basis, no inbound service, and also out of Newark Penn Station, limited service on the Northeast Corridor and North Jersey coastlines and the Raritan line as well, and limited service from Penn Station New York and to Penn Station in Newark, and no service into the city on New Jersey Transit. Also, New Jersey Transit operating on a load-and-go basis out of New York's Penn Station.
Well, Al, I didn't realize because the other towers are so big, but number 7 is 47 stories.
Explosive energy creates hot dust clouds rising like a volcanic eruption.
By the other two, it was kind of a reddish brown, and it more or less ran east and west. It was a long, thin building, but it had been damaged and it had been on fire for hours, and the smoke just seemed to intensify. But we really couldn't see a lot of damage from this angle, from the north side of the structures. That's why everybody was so surprised when all of a sudden it just fell.
Now, the other thing, too, we presume it has been burning for some time. As you indicated, there was nobody inside, and we hope no danger to anybody when it went down.
Well, that's you know, that's the thing, is that when number 2 went down, you know, I don't think...
The U.S. Geological Survey website provides us with a definition of a pyroclastic flow as a ground-hugging avalanche of hot gas and debris.
Would actually just fall, and that's what happened. They just crumbled.
The rising gas chimney is clearly visible in this photo of the North Tower implosion, with pyroclastic flows between buildings. The cauliflower shape of the debris clouds is a telltale sign of pyroclastic flows generated by massive explosions typical of volcanic eruptions and controlled demolitions.
Yes, you're absolutely right, Ben. That is the second building that has gone down. It came out like a plume of smoke, like a banana unpeeling, plumes of smoke coming out, and then absolutely nothing. And now where there were two huge buildings, two huge towers, there is now nothing.
A pyroclastic surge can even flow over water as hot gases carry dust created by explosive energy. Here, the South Tower implosion creates a pyroclastic surge moving out over the Hudson River.
The tower of the World Trade Center has just crumbled, collapsed in a pile of dust. This approximately less than an hour after it was hit by an aircraft.
The second building completely down.
People starting to run away from the scene, and I turned in time to see what looked like a skyscraper implosion. Looked like it had been done by a demolition crew. The whole thing just collapsing down on itself, and another big, huge plume of gray and white smoke shooting up into the air, and then more of the smoke billowing up the street here.
Once again, our definition of a pyroclastic flow. Hot gases carrying dust and debris flow along the ground with a fluid motion. It requires explosive energy to generate the necessary heat, dust, and debris. Turbulence and fluidization of debris are characteristic. Let's watch the fall of 7 World Trade again, this time with Rick's original audio. Mount Pinatubo's eruption illustrates the fluid movement of the pyroclastic flow.
Difficulties around the area. New Jersey Transit outbound Hoboken Terminal operating on a load-and-go basis, no inbound service, and also out of Newark Penn Station, limited service on the Northeast Corridor and North Jersey coastlines and the Raritan line as well, and limited service from Penn Station New York into Penn Station in Newark, and no service into the city on New Jersey Transit. Also, New Jersey Transit operating on
This pyroclastic cloud is definitely not just made up of concrete dust. Could it also be asbestos sticking to the camera lens? Renovation and removal of hazardous materials was overdue at the World Trade Center towers.
The asbestos is a hooked fiber, so if you breathe it in, like a hook on a fish, it sits there 10 years, turns into a nice cancer, and everyone who took that in took in a lot of fibers. And it only takes one to stay in there and hook in. It's a little microscopic fiber. So it's horrible. And those fibers have to still be floating around. It's like there's no way to get rid of all of them. And many of us were still upset. How can they kept saying, I go, what about the air quality? Oh, EPA says the air quality's fine. They don't know how they come up with that. How can a building that big with all that dust, the air flow across and people are going to be okay? It's, you know, what kind of dreamland can you live in to accept that as a reality?
How fast did 7 World Trade fall? By comparison with the white building in the foreground, we can estimate the distance between the 47th and 21st floor to be roughly 100 meters or 328 feet.
Later tonight, we expect to hear from President Bush.
We will now measure the time it takes for 7 World Trade to fall 100 meters.
Major difficulties around the area. New Jersey Transit outbound Hoboken Terminal operating on a load-and-go basis, no inbound service, and also out of Newark Penn Station, limited service on the north.
7 World Trade fell 100 meters in 4.5 seconds. Let's use a science website to compare this time with a free-fall experiment. This free-fall laboratory will help us examine the time it takes for the heavy steel found in the framework of 7 World Trade to fall through the air according to the law of gravity. We'll adjust the weight to the maximum ½ kilo or 1.1 pounds. We'll set the radius to 6 centimeters or 2.4 inches and the height to 100 meters or 328 feet. The 100-meter free fall time in air for long flat steel beams is approximately over 5 seconds. Next, we will try reducing the size of the radius from 6 centimeters to 3 centimeters, or 2.4 to 1.2 inches, like a 1-pound fishing weight. Half the diameter shortened the free fall time from 5.6 to 4.7 seconds. However, 7 World Trade fell 100 meters even faster in just 4.5 seconds. The only way to speed up the fall even more is to reduce the air density to 0 to simulate a vacuum with no air resistance. 7 World Trade fell 100 meters in 4.5 seconds, the same time required for a 100-meter free fall in a vacuum. In a normal collapse, resistance from a steel frame's support and moment of inertia would significantly increase the time required. Here we see a summary of the results for our free fall experiment. Now let's compare the real-time video with the free fall gravity laboratory.
Later tonight, we expect to hear from President Bush.
Difficulties around the area. New Jersey Transit outbound Hoboken Terminal operating on a load-and-go basis, no inbound service, and also out of Newark Penn Station, limited service on the north.
Let's remove the air resistance and use freeze frame analysis to get a better look at the fall. The ball has started to drop, yet 7 World Trade is still above the starting line. At the 1 second mark, 7 World Trade and the ball are still even.
Difficulties around the area. New Jersey Transit outbound Hoboken Terminal.
7 World Trade indeed falls 100 meters in 4.5 seconds. We observe that World Trade Center 7 fell faster than the speed of gravity, equivalent to the speed of free fall in a vacuum. We must conclude that a vacuum was created characteristic of an implosion where the structure is pulled down by a controlled demolition. Our supporting evidence is that debris fell neatly within the footprint of the building. An eyewitness heard a loud clap of thunder and saw a shock wave rip through the building, blowing out windows, before the ground floor exploded, and a second later the building came down. Rick's tape recorded a large explosion 9.5 seconds before any signs of collapse were visible.
We know our government can lie to us. Why isn't this a lie? And if you don't believe this one, you go to see what the government site says about the one in the Pentagon and look at the pictures that they give you. Where's the wings? Just the hole went. There's something outside, and there's the flames with nothing around. Just construction debris. It's scary. And then you don't want to be that way because that makes you even more paranoid. It's like I have to be paranoid about the people I think are protecting me. Well, yeah, they're basically the bullies, and the bullies are back, and they're no better than they ever were.
CNN's Chris Plant is in the nation's capital.
And speaking to people here at the Pentagon as they're being evacuated from the building, I am told by several people that there was in fact an explosion. I was told by one witness, an Air Force senior enlisted man, that he was outside when it occurred. He said that he saw a helicopter circle the building. He said that it appeared to be a U.S. military helicopter and that it disappeared behind the building where the helicopter landing zone is, and that he then saw a fireball go into the sky.
There's some serious issues that weren't answered, and they're not answering the questions. And they just want everyone to get on with their life, which sounds really nice on a tragedy, but it doesn't sound nice if it's to cover up something really hairy. Then it's not so nice. Then it's just part of the cover-up, and it doesn't work so well. And there are just so many questions, and why are there so many questions?
Let's try to answer some of those questions by looking at the projectile motion of the North Tower World Trade Center 1 debris. The evildoers who planned this tragedy must have believed that most folks didn't pay close attention during science class. Thanks to the internet, we can easily refresh our memories with a high school tutorial.
The second tower, and that's what you're looking at now. Again, this was not very long ago, 10, 15 minutes ago. The second tower, it almost looks like one of those implosions of buildings that you see.
Televised footage provides us with clear examples of debris falling from the North Tower. Since collapsing debris can only move downward, a horizontal projectile would be the upper extreme possible. However, the arc of the farthest debris doesn't match the cannonball fired horizontally. Let's try another possibility. Non-horizontally launched projectiles have an upward velocity. We've all seen this type of motion when watching fireworks shoot high into the sky. In this example, the upward velocity and the outward velocity are equal, creating a 45-degree angle for the cannonball arc. The y component represents up and down, and the x-axis represents left and right. At the start, they are equal. At the top of the arc, the y value is 0. As the cannonball falls to the original level of the cannon, its speed increases to its original value of 60 meters per second. Yet the x value remains the same throughout the flight of the cannonball. Let's compare this example to the North Tower debris. In a natural collapse, debris should fall close to the side of the building. However, in the case of the North Tower, we see upward explosions of dust and smoke in a symmetrical pattern. From within the falling debris, we can see an explosive puff of cloud rising as another section is ejected in an arc roughly 600 feet or 2 football fields away from the tower. An upward 45-degree angle projectile appears to match the arc of the ejected debris. The dust clouds following the ejected debris are consistent with an explosive event, whereas large chunks of concrete would normally result from a simple collapse. This would indicate that a powerful explosion, similar to a cannon firing a cannonball, must have ejected this heavy steel debris with equal upward and outward force to create this shape of projectile motion. This photo shows the damage to nearby buildings from North Tower debris. Here we can see how the large outer steel sections are sticking out of the American Express building like arrows out of a target. Large sections of the North Tower's outer steel framework weigh hundreds of tons joined together. Where did the huge amount of energy come from to eject them roughly 600 feet through the air into the rooftop of the Winter Garden? Perhaps the clearest evidence of controlled demolition was published as early as May 2002 in the Federal Emergency Management Agency's preliminary report and has been in plain sight all this time. If we look at this chart listing the impact and collapse seismic statistics, we find several illogical results that have apparently been overlooked by the Blue Ribbon team of experts who compiled the report. The first is the duration of the collapse for the North and South Towers. The North Tower created an 8-second signal, far too short to represent the collapse of debris. Next, we see that the magnitude of the North and South Towers is 2.1 and 2.3 respectively. Since the magnitude is a logarithmic scale, this indicates a very large difference in the energy of the falling towers. A single-digit increase in the Richter scale magnitude represents a logarithmic increase of a factor of 10 and a seismic energy increase of roughly 30 times. For example, 1.0 would require 30 pounds of TNT, 2.0 would require 1 ton of TNT, and 3.0 would require 29 tons of TNT to produce the necessary seismic energy. In the case of the North and South Towers, a Richter scale magnitude measurement of 2.1 for the South Tower collapse would represent the seismic energy of 1.4 tons of TNT detonated. For the North Tower, the magnitude was 2.3, equivalent to 2.7 tons of TNT detonated. Since the magnitude is determined from the peak amplitude of the seismic wave, this indicates that the explosive power recorded during the North Tower collapse was roughly double that of the South Tower. Since the towers were virtually identical, the conservation of energy law requires that the standing potential energy and the falling kinetic energy should be roughly the same. Examples like this steel debris ejected upward and outward, followed by a comet trail of dust, clearly illustrate the explosive energy measured in the North Tower implosion.
When you got a cement, concrete, asbestos, and sheetrock building, what's burning? You know, it's a bit distressing to think of that. And it wasn't, I don't think there might have been diesel fuel, but diesel fuel doesn't burn till 3,000 degrees. So where was the fire? I don't understand that. And yet it burned for a month. Every night we come out here and it's burning and burning a whole month. Something's not right there, you know? Not right at all. I like the guys who go like Ground Zero. That's the part of the site because it was a nuclear attack, and that could be the only possibility why there was a molten mass at the bottom, that it was molten, because it couldn't be from the fire above. Hey, it's ridiculous. A couple stories burn and hundreds drop, and it would actually put the fire out from the vacuum. And so what's burning now? What's burning? Like, what did you melt down there? And they don't answer it. Why don't they answer a question, you know? And do you think it's such a stupid question you shouldn't answer it? Or you'd rather have people wondering? You answer a question so you don't have doubt. And why would you want your people to have a doubt? And a lot of people have a doubt. And all of us are, you know, anyone who was here wonders where you were. That was why weren't you here? Yeah, and I read the sites and they say, within 20 minutes they were 20 miles out at sea circling around. We're here. This is where they hit, you know, not 20 miles out there. And if you say you had guys out there 20 miles, that's real nice. Where were you for us? And okay, you didn't stop or shoot down those planes or do anything, but where were you to show us you were here in case any others were coming? Yeah, give it 10, 20 minutes. How about a half an hour? Guys, you're our soldiers. You wanted to do this. You're there to protect us. We respect you. We honor you. We pay for everything. We see you. We love you. And somehow you weren't there. So ask your boss why. Like, why weren't you allowed there? What were you doing that day? And how come you weren't on this call? And when you heard about it on the TV in your squad room, why didn't you ask how come you're not scrambling? And can I take my jet and go fight? Somebody should have done that. Somebody should have been out there.
Let's quickly review the three main events in order for World Trade Center 2, World Trade Center 1, and World Trade Center 7.
Well, this really is a case of a situation that you thought couldn't get any worse, getting progressively worse. First one plane crashing into the World Trade Center, then a second crashing into the second.
Mysterious bright flashes were seen from the chopper that was dropping a line out above the South Tower moments before it became the first steel structure in history to collapse.
Capitol evacuated. The Sears Tower in Chicago has been evacuated. There was no threat of an attack against the Sears Tower, but they're obviously going to quit while they're ahead.
As Chopper 4 emerges from the smoke above the North Tower, its white belly becomes visible from another camera angle near the church on the other side of the building. Is this a genuine New York Police Department air-sea rescue chopper that simply decided not to rescue anyone? Or is it participating in the tripod emergency war game exercise FEMA started running September 10th at the World Trade Center from the Port Authority headquarters, Pier 92? This photo shows the top section of the South Tower leaning at a sharp angle early in its collapse. This style of controlled demolition was also seen in Philadelphia in 1999. Instead of the top section falling into the street in one piece in accordance with Newton's 3 laws of motion, we can observe fragmented debris ejected horizontally outward, followed by clouds of fine pulverized concrete dust. The observed South Tower pre-collapse detonation sequence indicates numerous explosions accompanied by dust clouds rising hundreds of feet from the base of the towers. Let's examine why the official pancake collapse theory is an unrealistic deception. The North and South Towers were made in 3 sections. Reinforced elevator floors for the sky lobby and heavy motors are directly below the impact zone and would stop a genuine collapse, forcing the top section to fall into the street. According to Newton's first law of motion, the law of inertia, an object in motion tends to stay in motion with the same speed and same direction unless acted upon by an unbalanced force. A pancake collapse theory violates the laws of science because the momentum of the top section would not be conserved according to Newton's second law of motion. Newton's third law of motion states that for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. Therefore, the action of high-powered explosions produces the equal and opposite reaction of ejected steel beams and pulverized concrete dust. Let's hear what some experts who appeared on television had to say.
The building was designed to have a fully loaded 707 crash into it. That was the largest plane at the time. I believe that the building probably could sustain multiple impacts of jetliners because this structure is like the mosquito netting on your screen door, this intense grid, and the jet plane is just a pencil puncturing that screen netting. It really does nothing to the screen netting.
It was very much like a controlled demolition when you look at it, because the building essentially fell almost vertically down, as if someone had deliberately set blasts to take place to cause the building to fall vertically downward.
A light-colored dust detonation zone quickly progresses down the side of the tower while the corner structure remains intact. Within 3 seconds, the detonation zone has become roughly 30 stories tall, with the dark smoke collapse zone far above.
We made it at least 2 blocks, and we started running. Floor by floor, it started popping out.
It was if they had detonated.
Yeah,
as
detonated.
if they were planned to take down a building. Boom, 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 boom.
All the way down. I was watching it and running.
Except for emergency vehicles. I did pass through a couple of parks and on some of the streets, and before, when I reported about an hour ago, there were people at their gas pumps who turned to look at the smoke that was coming from the city, folks stepping out of bodegas and stores to look. Now people are gathering in large groups. In fact, in one corner, I saw a group of people actually holding hands and praying. As I stand on the Manhattan Bridge, which is closed, it is open to pedestrian traffic. Some people are walking across, but there's just no way for them to, as I look out, something is that I can't
We have a long history of successful steel construction in this country and in fact the world. And one of the great successes is that under normal fire conditions, we don't have building collapse. In fact, until 9/11, I was unaware of any protected steel structure that had collapsed anywhere in the world from just a fire.
Later tonight, we expect to hear from President Bush.
Manager difficulties around the area. New Jersey Transit outbound Hoboken Terminal operating on a load-and-go basis, no inbound service, and also out of Newark Penn Station, limited service on the Northeast Corridor in North Jersey.
I remember getting a call from the fire department commander telling me that they were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire. And I said, you know, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull, and then we watched the building collapse.
Difficulties around the area. New Jersey Transit outbound Hoboken Terminal operating on a load-and-go basis, no inbound service, and also out of Newark Penn Station, limited service on the Northeast Corridor and North Jersey coastlines and the Raritan line as well, and limited service from Penn Station in New York into Penn Station in Newark, and no service into the city on New Jersey Transit. Also, New Jersey Transit operating on a
Look at galleons sailing, big ships, freighters coming, tourist boats, parks and cars and big buildings and everything 24 hours a day. This is the fantasy come true. I don't think I know anybody who came there who didn't understand what it meant, Arab or not. I have so many friends from Lebanon, and we all sat in the same shock. I think when we sat in the city, sit on Broadway, and there's no traffic on a regular weekday, and nobody's coming around. People have run into holes and they don't want to come out. I'm begging people for proof every day. Tell me I'm free. Tell me how come I have restricted speech and you're telling me I got free speech in this country? Why can't I say this? Why can't I disagree? Well, you can't disagree, then you're a traitor. Well, you can't say this because you're disagreeing with the government, and now you're, what are you doing? Encouraging terrorism? And no, I want reality and freedom and truth and liberty. Liberty is a huge word. It doesn't just mean, a free trade market where the stock market can open and close wherever it wants. Liberty is the freedom to do anything you want in nature as long as you're not offending it in any way. And like you try to do that here, it's like, forget it. You can't. And that was America, was supposed to be that. Yeah, the Air Force Base is about 10 minutes if you fly on a slow plane. I think it's 2 minutes if you fly in one of those jets. And they never came around. This is their ticket to taking away every freedom. And my poor American people, they let them do this to them. You can't give away freedom for a wishful dream that you can be safe at night. Freedom's not easy. Freedom is costly. Freedom doesn't come cheap.